So, you want to learn how to actually play the maps in the finals, and not just stuff like, this is hospital, it's good, or this is construction, it's chaotic. No, you want to know how to actually play these maps. Well, you're in luck, because in today's video, I'm going to be going over Seoul and how to play it, the different cash out spots and positions you likely should take accordingly, cash out manipulation strategies to use or just be aware of in your games, and I'll be doing this all while giving you the first ever complete set of comprehensive callouts, along with some personal gadget and specialization recommendations at the end. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so the first area that I'm going to start off with is hospital, because this is probably the most unique area of the map, because you basically only have 3 entry points to hospital and maybe a 4th depending on how Embark wants spawning to work that season. So yep, you have this area right here, this area over here, which is the bridge, which you can break, by the way. Most people break the bridge, but I will get to that a little bit later. Then you can access the area through the crane, and a lot of people also break crane. And then sometimes, depending on how spawns work, some people can also spawn right down here, but this is not always the case. So if you see people spawning down here in any given season, you might want to just set one guy over here to watch this spot. All right, but before we talk about any of the site setups or anything like that, I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So I've actually come up with a comprehensive list of callouts for everything on this map. So let's start with over here. So this wide open space here, this is the most dangerous part of this entire map. And a lot of times in high level lobbies, because both crane and bridge will be gone, you will be forced to cross this. This place is going to be called Connector. You could also call it No Man's Land, but I think Connector is probably what most people are going to call it. And in terms of cover, you've got just this little bit of metal and stuff over here, but it's really not much. So if you want to cross this, I would highly advise that you bring one of 3 things. You can put an angled jump pad right over here to cross quickly. And then from there, what I would do is I would make your way over to the left spot and jump through this window right here, like so. Because if you jump over here, people can still laser you from either right up there or right up there, so I would move to the left. The other thing that you could do is you could put a zip line down and then use a vanish bomb on your team to make them harder to track. But if you don't have a vanish bomb, I would not necessarily recommend doing this, and I would place the zip line somewhere else, maybe over there or maybe up there, something like that. Then the third thing that you can do is you can send a light across this area, hopefully with some sort of way of staying hidden or getting across fast with a gateway. I would put your gateway right about here. Placing a gateway. And then cross to the other side, and I would just toss this like that in there for your team, so that way your slow heavies and mediums don't get shot at and killed as they run across. Now, inside hospital, we've got a lot of very, very tight corners and one open space right about over here. If you are holding inside hospital, obviously, your shorter range weapons are going to have the advantage over here. The only place where your long range weapons are really going to be doing well is up here on the roof, especially just attacking anyone from over here or up there, or if you are holding right here, which is what I recommend you do if you have the cash out site. So this area over here is going to be called lobby. Now this area is mirrored several times throughout this map. If we go up here, you can see here it is a second time, and here it is a third time. And then obviously there's not a 4th one because now you're up on the roof. So the thing about the finals is that they tend to mirror their maps and stuff a lot, which means that you can't really create super unique callouts for many of these spaces because they just copy and paste them up several floors. So if you want to be precise with your callouts, I would say lobby 1, lobby 2, or lobby 3, depending on what floor you're on, or you could say lobby 1st floor, whatever works for your team. Then this big room over here, this is called info because there's an information desk. Info is the biggest room on hospital. You can get people holding from all sorts of angles, so I would recommend that you do not stay down here in info. Info is kind of a dangerous place to be, especially when anyone can shoot you up there from glass. It's super, super easy to just kill anybody from glass who's sitting in info. Over here, we've got elevators. As you can see, it's called elevators because there are 2 elevators. So you can say people are inside one of the elevators or not, inside left, inside right, something like that. This whole space is just going to be called elevators, though. People don't really hold elevators too often. I've seen it done if you have like a flamethrower heavy, but especially if you can like goo off bridge or goo off any of these different doors right here. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend holding elevators because there's just so many areas people can collapse into this space from. Over here, we have what is called small lobby. Small lobby also repeats itself several times. So there'll be small lobby 2 and also small lobby 3. And as you can see, these spaces up here connect to a spot called North Ward, and North Ward is pretty much a copy of the large ward over there, except just slightly smaller. People do like to hang out in North Ward quite a bit. People like to just sit here and look over the bridge if they haven't destroyed it, or maybe they get a side angle over on Connector, something like that. But just be prepared for anybody sitting in any of the North Wards. Now, over here, we have Large Ward, which is this space over here. Now, there is a little bit of cover in Large Ward, and people do like to sit in here, especially as like a full team. So I wouldn't recommend you just walk into this room solo if you know that there is going to be people in here, because usually it's like 2 or 3 people in here. I would recommend you breach the ceiling first before you try doing anything regarding attacking this room. Now, over here, this is Small Ward, and as you can see, there is a cash box here. People also do like to just sit here in Small Ward and look over at Connector. I wouldn't recommend just sitting in Small Ward, especially if the cash out site is literally right here. You might send like your light over here once in a while, but Small Ward does tend to see a lot of traffic, especially people hiding from stairway. Speaking of stairways, I should talk about the stairwells. This is South Stairs. Over here, this is Mid Stairs. And this is North Stairs. Now, I know these are a lot of things to keep track of, and I did my best with these callouts, but the thing is, with this map, there's just so many copy and paste things. It's really hard to give these specific unique names without just naming off general directions or positions. That's just kind of the nature of the maps in the finals. This space over here, this is called Tech. This is the only tech room in this entire hospital building. People do like to run around in here. I haven't seen too many people like sit here and hold this position, but people do like to jump in and out of this window over here or in and out of those windows, especially if there's a fight going on over here on glass or metal. I should also talk about glass and metal here. People like to hold this area of metal because there's a lot of cover, especially if you are a light player or a medium player. A medium player can get a head glitch right here, and a light player has almost full body cover. So people do like to hold over here on metal. Glass, obviously, it's great for shooting at anyone who might be down in info. And then up here, you can also hold on top of both left and right elevator. Down here, this area where people can sometimes spawn depending on the update or version of the game. This is going to be called Secret. People are very, very rarely ever down here. There is a zip line that allows you to do some movement jukes if it hasn't been destroyed. So if you want to keep that as like a little bit of a backup, that's always nice. The only time I really ever see people down in Secret is if they spawn here. Sometimes there's a cash box that can start like right there. And every once in a while, people will rotate in here from elevators into the small lobby. And then they will maybe take the zip line to try and get a flank on anyone who might be sitting on glass or anyone who might be over in tech. And finally, up here, we have the pad. I'm just going to call this helicopter because this is a helicopter pad. I've also heard some people say landing. You can call it landing as well. Either works. Helicopter, landing, whichever you feel like. So up here, people don't really hold up here as often. I've seen it happen. A lot of pro teams do like to sit up here and just have every single person just stack up here because obviously it's easier to get a proper jump pad from there to there than it is to get one from here to here. So this makes holding up here just generally better. So while I don't see people do this often, I would actually recommend holding up here from the helicopter pad. Then I should mention bridge here because it is one of the main access points to this hospital. It is pretty open and it is pretty easy to shoot anybody coming through it. So as you can see, as you're walking through bridge, you can get shot from the glass from anyone holding these angles over here. You can get kind of shot from like over there anyone holding over here. And really the only cover you have are like these things right here. And these things get destroyed very fast, like especially these screens, and you can shoot through these pretty easily. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to rotate through bridge, but it's definitely better than rotating out over there. So if you can rotate through bridge, I would recommend it, but it is possible that someone might have a C4 trap on the other end to just blow it all up. So just be careful of that. Now for cash out site spawns. One of them can usually spawn over here in the elevators. I might be misremembering which elevator it is, but I think it's this one. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but either way, your strategy is going to be basically the same. So you could do one of two things. You could either try to move it outside of the elevator if you want to. Maybe if you have a lock bolt or a winch claw, getting it at like maybe this angle is probably going to be your best bet. But this thing right here can block your winches, so just be careful of that. And how I recommend holding this is you should probably have someone up there on the glass, just kind of looking down. You can kind of just leave this here. It's really, really easy to just throw explosives and utility in here to just get anyone who might be on this cash box out of it. The only thing I would worry about is someone gooing off this spot right here. So just be aware of that. I would make sure that you bring something to get rid of the goo very, very quickly. Okay, now you can get a cash out site over here in North Ward, and as you can see, you get pretty good vision over here if you just want to sit in here. The only issue with this is that it's really easy for anyone to jump into this room from pretty much every angle. So you can get someone out here with a jump pad or a zip line, especially if bridge hasn't been broken. And you can get people who come in here through the vent. So if you want to watch that, I would recommend having goo or a barricade to just block that off. And then you can get people coming in through this bridge, obviously. And then you can get anyone who might be coming in through the ceiling. You can get it dematted through the floor, all of that stuff. So this cash out site tends to be very, very chaotic. A lot of things can happen in this small spot. So how would I recommend that you hold this area? What I would recommend that you do is you come up here and you basically hold this area right over here. You can destroy any of this portion of the roof and then kind of just look down on it super, super easily. And if you're really worried about being jumped on, you can obviously just come up right over here on top of elevators. What I would not recommend you do is for you to just sit in the room with it, because this is just asking to get attacked from basically any different area. When you just sit in this room with the cash out site, anyone can push from any area of the map, and you're basically giving up something called map control. Now, I know a lot of you Siege players are very good with map control and stuff like that, so I probably don't have to explain it to you. But to everybody else, basically, you want to have people kind of scattered around the map, or at least just holding power positions to make sure that your enemy can't take them for free. So as I said before, I would hold up there. Maybe if there are a bunch of third parties, I would go and drop down one floor instead and just wait for them to kill each other and just sit here and barricade in, something like that. Just anywhere that you can easily access that cash out site, but without being right inside of it. Now over here, you can get this large ward cash box site. You can see it's up there. Large ward cash box site is also pretty chaotic. It's not quite as chaotic as North Ward, but you can get people to come in and demat through south stairs. You can get people to come over here and demat from mid stairs. You can get people who come in from the ceiling, the floor, anywhere out here in the lobby, etc. So you just have to be very, very careful of this room, especially. Once again, I would not recommend that you just sit here on the cash box unless like maybe there's like just a little bit of time left and everyone's close range. I would recommend that you go up or down a floor with demat or breaching charges or something like that. But yeah, just hold from like maybe the stairways. Just hold this staircase right here. Maybe you hold it from tech. Any of those places. Just don't like try not to just barricade yourself in the rooms with cash boxes is kind of what I'm saying here. And then the same thing over here for small ward. People can easily jump pad out here. Anyone can access this easily from stairs. Pretty much all of these cash box sites in hospital, you do not want to be in like the exact same room as them. Just hold any of the adjacent rooms and you should be fine. Now, finally, you can get a cash box that'll spawn up here on landing. I barely ever see this cash box, but it does happen sometimes. So if you're holding this one right here, You can just sit here and hold landing pad if you're confident that you're only going to get a 3v3, because this is like one of the best positions to hold on top of hospital. So if you get this cash box here, this is like one of the only ones that you can kind of like be next to and do well with. But if you are expecting everybody to just show up here, because you know that happens sometimes in the finals, I would recommend that you like drop down a floor, maybe even drop down 2 floors. Or maybe if you have someone with a goo gun, I would maybe put some out there and then just kind of wait there and then climb up when someone starts stealing, something like that. Also, just a couple more things I should mention about hospital before we move on. There is this little area over here. You can raise this wall up. The only time that this is really helpful is to anyone who might be crossing over here. So if you can and you're holding hospital, try to make it so that this wall is down. You don't really want this one to be up, because let's say that they push over here and for some reason they don't go left and they go forward instead. They can just kind of hide behind this wall right here. They can make little rotates. Like, obviously it's not crazy cover, but it is cover and it's better than nothing. So just try to leave this wall down if you're defending. And then you have this zip line right here. This one allows anyone to like pretty easily push you, especially if you don't have anyone like sitting right here. What I would do every time, destroy this one if you're defending. Just destroy that zip line every single time. This one you can leave up if you think that you'll need it later, but I would also just destroy this one as well. And then this one right here, I would also probably destroy this one unless you think that you can get like some free damage on anyone coming across. But I would recommend destroying this most of the time unless you're very, very confident that you can get some free damage on people and they won't just have like a mesh shield and cross. Okay, now we are finally at Clinic. This over here is called Clinic. It is the smaller version of Hospital. This area right here is called Cafe. There tend to be a lot of fights that break out in Cafe. So let me tell you about it really quickly. Most of the time, if you're in Cafe, you want to be holding this position right here. This is pretty much the only cover that you're going to get in this area. You could also hold a secret up here. You could just hold this spot over here. You could also hold this spot over here, although this one is a little bit more risky, especially if you don't have a DMAT. But yeah, I would recommend holding over there, or you can sit on this door right here, or you can kind of like take this angle right over here or right over here. But yeah, Cafe is kind of just like a all-out brawl area, so just be careful of that. But anybody who might be sitting up there or with a DMAT up there is going to be able to get pretty easy shots on you, so just be aware of that. Now, over here, we have info. I should also mention that, as I said before, the finals likes to copy and paste a lot of areas, and because of that, a lot of these spaces tend to have the same naming scheme in the way that I'm going to talk about them, because most of the time, you're not going to be so split that all of your team is either in hospital and clinic, and that if you make a call for info, it's like, which info is it? Your team should always be in the same building, for the most part, right? Unless you're doing some silly strategy or something like that. So if you want to say info or something like that, I feel like having multiple areas have the same name is fine. It's also easier for people to remember if this info desk is called info and the info desk over there is also called info. So yeah. All right. So this area over here is going to be called info. And this info is a little bit smaller than hospital's info. And as you can see, you have this nice zip line. People really like to take this zip line. I very rarely see anyone just sit here in info, just because, just like Cafe, there are so many angles that you can get shot at from info. So I would recommend, once you are in this area, to quickly cross to any other part of the map as soon as possible. Over here, this is a very, very weird like kitchen space or something like that. But I'm going to call it storage because like there's servers and things, I guess, in here. I don't know. It's a weird hospital layout. But yeah, I'm just going to call this area storage. You could also call it kitchen if you feel like, but I feel like storage makes more sense. Now over here, I know this area says storage, but for the sake of just cohesion and everything, I'm also going to call this area ward, or you could say clinic ward, because as you know, we already have places called storage in this map, and I'll get to more of them later. But like this area, you could call this storage. I feel like this is much more of a storage than this area is over here. But yeah, I would call this ward. This one you could say ward or clinic ward, whichever you feel like. All right, so in this building, there are 3 sets of stairs. Over here, we have ward stairs. Over here, we have crane stairs. And over here, we have edge stairs because the edge of the map is right there. And so these are 3 sets of stairs. Most people like to just kind of sit on these stairs over here, or they'll sit on the ones over there, although that's a little less common, and sometimes they'll sit on the stairs over there. Most often, I see people over here, but just holding any of the stairs is usually a good spot to fight people from because you have so many different angles that you can work with, like right here. Those are great spaces to fight from. Then you have your elevator right here, of course. Then up here, we have what is called metal. These two, this kind of whole space over here is going to be called metal. You could also say on top of the crane stairs over here, if you want to make specific callouts like that. And then over here, once again, is glass. Then you have crane, good old crane. Down here, this area is called garden. This area is just going to be called hut. It's just a very, very small building. And then over here, this is called HVAC. This area over here is just going to be called lower roof because, you know, there's a higher rooftop than this one. I see fights over here sometimes, especially on first cash box, because usually there's one like right over there that spawns a lot of the time. But other than that, most people do opt to stay up here on glass or metal, or even on elevator or on top of the stairs. So just be aware of that. Okay, now in terms of engagements up on the areas that I just mentioned, you're going to get a lot of fights over here from glass to metal because people really do like to fight for this high ground. You'll usually get people just sitting up here on top of these stairways as well, usually a light player. And sometimes you'll get people who are sitting on crane, but most of the time they're usually crossing over to hospital or something of the sort. So obviously the best space to try and fight someone is over here on metal, just like holding this spot up here, especially if they're over here in garden or an HVAC. This is just free damage for you. And then glass is more so to fight people who are down here in info. And then I would recommend that you get on top of elevator or the ward stairs over here if you're going to fight anybody on lower roof instead of just fighting them on 1v1 situations. All right, this spot over here is called access. You'll usually see people rotating over here, especially if they're like fighting in and out of storage or in and out of cafe. Don't sit down here in access. It's a death trap. I would recommend holding any sort of access over here from glass. And one more thing before we get to the cash box sites. Regarding the zip lines right here, I would recommend that you keep this one up. It's just good for rotates, or you can try and destroy it if you see people crossing it. You can take this zip line up here. Also, I recommend just like leaving these ones up unless there's like literally a cash out site over here, and holding glass is super important. But I feel like having this zip line over here and this zip line over here are okay because most of the time you're going to be holding areas over here from on top of stairs or from metal. So like these zip lines are usually fine to stay. You can destroy them if you want to for your specific strategies, but like they're usually fine. Unless you're worried about someone flanking you, like maybe on elevator, you can destroy that one. That one is also usually fine to leave up, but I mean, it's up to you. Now let's talk about cash out sites. You can have a cash box that spawns over here in the ward, usually right about here. Once again, just like hospital, I don't recommend holding in this room exactly. Hold from like any of the rooftop spaces or below if you're worried about third parties, any of that. Just don't hold in the exact room the cash box is in, please. Over here, elevator. Just like hospital elevators, you can do pretty much the same strategies for that elevator. And even more actually, because you can basically like demat any of these outside walls over here to really easily get access in it, especially if it's on the first floor. And then over here, there can be the cafe box. And with the cafe cash out site, you could hold from up here pretty well. The only thing that I would be worried about is anyone coming with a demat up through here, and they might be able to shoot you, or they might come from the vent. But yeah, so that's, you can hold from secret. You could also hold from glass up on elevator, which is really what I recommend you do, is probably to hold from elevator or to hold up here on top of these stairs, on top of ward stairs, because you can just really easily like demat through this part of the map and get some free shots on them. All right, now we are at apartments. This whole area out here is called alley. In alley, there can be like stuff like a cash box can spawn here, but nothing really else happens out here. I wouldn't recommend fighting out here, especially because people can like shoot you from any of these windows up here. So just be careful of that. You could like maybe like stick around this area between plaza and alley and just kind of like sit around here. But for the most part, alley can be a bit of a death trap, so just be careful about that. Or you could like rotate over here to stairs really, really early something like that. This area, as I just mentioned before, this is called Plaza. Over here, this is tech for apartments, or you could call it electric if you wanted to, but this is tech for apartments. Then you have your 3 stairways in this area of apartment. You have this one over here, which I'm going to be calling alley stairs. You have this one over here. This is called garden stairs. And this one over here, you can call edge stairs. My friend Newt here was just saying cliff stairs. Either of those work. This room over here, I called trap because it's a literal death trap. Don't go in here. Sometimes a cash box spawns in here. Tap it and leave immediately. This is a horrible room to be in. So that's trap. And then you have your apartments up here, and I'll show you your apartments. Over here, this is small apartment, or you could say small apps. I know a lot of the Counter-Strike players like to say apps instead of apartments. You can say apps if you want. And this over here is large apps because it's so much bigger. Out here, this is garden. And this whole area over here, this is called balcony. And this is the hut of apartments over here. Over here, up on the rooftop, this is obviously just rooftop over here. This area I'm calling heaven, as kind of sharing in the same vein of Counter-Strike and Valorant callouts. And this over here is sign. You could say signage. I like sign. And yep, this over here, this is the metal, and this is just roof over here. Or you could say bridge if someone is like right here. In terms of strategies for apartments, the most common thing I see people do in high level for apartments is just immediately take heaven. You just like run over here and then mantle up on this little bit right over here. And now you're just right on top of heaven. You could also take this lift. You could also take the ladder if the ladder is still there, although people do like to destroy this one. And if you cross over from mall, you could also take this zip if it's still here. But people also like to destroy this one as well. Same thing over here from construction is that there can be a zip over here. Over here, heaven is a great place to hold unless you expect a team to be over here if it is on construction. In which case, if you are holding this area, I would recommend that you actually be down here towards sign instead. Because it's really easy to get shot from over there, or for someone to just like easily cross from construction onto heaven. So just be aware of that. Otherwise, I see people sit over here kind of in the lobby. I forgot to mention this area is going to be called lobby. Although for the people who might be just holding lobby, just be aware anyone can shoot you up there from that vent in signage if they have an angle on you. People also really like to just like hold these stairs over here. And they like to also hold on top of or below the cash box in the adjoining apartments. So in terms of cash out site spawns, you can get one over here in large apps. You can get one over here in small apps, and it tends to be kind of over in this spot. So over here, you can get one cash box over here as well. This is right next to tech or electric. And something that you can do, a lot of people just kind of hold this from lobby. You could also just sit here in tech yourself with a DMAT, just waiting here for someone to start stealing, and then just DMAT through the wall and destroy them. That's a strategy you can use. And then another cash out site is up here on metal, where it can be right here. And for metal, the thing that I would do is I would rotate up here onto heaven, or you could hold over here from signage if you want to. The only thing that you really have to be careful of is if someone comes into a large apartment right down below it and demats it down. So you just have to be careful about that, because they can just drop it down like a couple floors, close that one up. And then if you don't have a plan for that, that's no good for you. So basically just a lot of the strategies over here in apartments is just like holding heaven and sign and then having a rotate available to you, or just hiding in the adjoining rooms. You're going to see this trend a lot in maps in the finals as I talk about them, is just that like sitting in rooms that are like nearby the cash out site but not on them is usually the best strategy, or just holding height in general. Now out here, you can have this cash out site over here on balcony. A lot of people like to winch it over here into garden and then destroy the trees and then hold up there from metal or signage. But the thing is that if you don't move this box at all and you just keep it here, this is also a good spot to hold it. But someone can come from over here and winch it over here on to the east portion of balcony. So you just got to be careful of that. Or they could even winch it over towards hut here, or the west side of balcony, just anything like that. You just got to be careful of that. I've seen some people sit here and just hold that space like on top of balcony to try and hold the cash box site, that's fine. But the thing is that good players will punish that by just taking height on signage, and then once they damage you, they'll like do an angled pad or something like that, and then just destroy you completely. Hello. So it should work for like a lot of you, because a lot of you probably don't play in that elo. But if you do play in a higher elo, I wouldn't recommend holding on top of balcony, and I would instead hold on top of the signage over there. You could even hold on top of lift if you feel like, just like those two areas. And if you are super close range and don't have movement, you can maybe just hide here and hut as well. And then as you can see what Newt is doing, if you have some goo over here, you can just kind of sit right here. I don't see this strategy happen too often, but I have seen it occur. So if you just cannot find the enemy team and this cash box seems a little bit too free, they could be sitting outside of the map on some goo. Over here, this is mall, and malls suck to name because there are so many copy and pasted areas in malls, so I'll just get through them as fast as possible. This area over here, this is called trees, because there's trees. Wow. And then over here, we've got another info desk. So this here is called info. So you could use the directions like east shop, south shop, over here, and west shop. But if you feel like having a different name would be better for you, this one over here could be called alley shop. This one over here can be called small shop. And this one over here, this is large shop because it's the biggest like volume area of it, I think, at least. It looks more open than the others, so it's large shop. Over here, you also have elevator too. You have escalators right up there. Over here, this is lobby. And then if you go up a couple floors, this area is cafe because you've got seating and such. Up here, this is just the final small shop over here. You could call this top shop or something if you wanted to, or you could say 6 small shop. I'll just say top shop. Up here, this up here is glass. And then over here, this whole kind of space over here is metal. This area over here, I was thinking of calling this large stairs because it's closest to large shop. And then this area over here, this is going to be called small stairs. So there are only 2 sets of stairs on this map. And then there's a lift over here, or you can like run up the sides, or maybe if the zip lines are still up, you can take them. But otherwise, that's the only way of like actually getting onto roof easily. So yeah, roof can be a very powerful position to hold up on this map, especially if you are on top of small or large stairs. Once again, small stairs and large stairs right here. Also, this whole area right over here, this big open spot, this is called ramp. Over here, I almost forgot, this area is called garden. This over here is secret. It's kind of the corner of the map. This area over here, this is walkway. This is west walkway specifically. And this area over here is east walkway. So in terms of cash outs that can spawn, you can get some stuff over here in alley shop, usually like over in this one over here, I believe, or it could be a floor down, one of the two. But it's one of these 2 shops, and if it is up in that one, people do tend to drop it down a little bit. And then there can also be one over here in a large shop, right over here. So yeah, and then there is a cash out that can be found in this elevator. But I basically never see this one. I've seen it like maybe like 2 or 3 times ever, and I have like 1,000 hours in this game. So maybe I'm just unlucky or something, but I've like never see this one, but it does exist. And then there is a cash out that can spawn over here in cafe, and that's usually right about here. So to briefly talk about all of those, the cafe one, the best area to hold the cafe one is obviously going to be over here in top shop, or you could hold it from glass or metal. You could hold it from ramp, but holding from ramp is very risky. It's very open. I wouldn't recommend that. So either hold it from like metal, like right over here, or maybe just like rotate in like over here kind of on the glass area. Like this area of metal is usually good, especially if it's not under construction. It's kind of hard to get up here because this pad will be gone. Otherwise, you could try to hold it from like the stairs over here. I see people hold it from small stairs quite frequently as well. And then for alley shop's a little bit weird because anyone can like really easily just jump pad up here, come through this window and attack you, or they can just walk up ramp and attack you. So what I see a lot of people do is they try to bring the cash box like out here or they try to like just drop it down 1 or 2 floors and then just like hold from wherever they can. Or like sometimes I also see people bring it out over here into East Walkway. Sometimes this one can get a little chaotic if they do bring it out there. The thing about the alley shop cash box is that it's just kind of hard to hold because there's not really a good spot to hold it from.
I've seen people winch claw it there.
Reloading.
Yep. So that's also a good one too, if you can manage that, that is. But yeah, still trying to hold that one from height is what I recommend because it's really hard to hold it from below, like down here. Anyone can just like really easily get right up here or come over here from escalators. It's just like so hard to properly hold this cash box without physically moving it somewhere else. So if you can move it, do move it. And then over here for large shop, there's usually one right here. In large shop, this cash out is actually pretty normal. You can hold this from a variety of places. A lot of people like to just kind of sit over here in stairs and wait for someone to start stealing. Or they'll go up here onto the 3rd floor and just wait to demat, just like that. And sometimes people even drop it down another floor and try to hold from 2nd floor. Or people will rotate down to 1st floor if they think there's going to be a 3rd party. And then the final thing that you can do is you can also just hold it over here from like West Walkway over in this spot, especially if you've dropped it down to 1st floor. Holding from West Walkway can be a really good strategy. As long as you make sure that there's no one coming up here. Maybe you have your light scout up there just a little bit. So that's kind of the strategy for this spot over here. You can move it around if you want to, but this one is usually already in a pretty decent spot because people usually aren't going to attack you from that spot.
Let's crush it.
While with the alley shop over here, people can basically attack you from all different angles. And then for the elevator cash out site, what I would do is I would bring this all the way up to the top floor. And then I would just hold it from glass. Hold it from glass. Hold it from metal over here. Really easy one to hold. Another thing you could also do is if it's right here, because you don't have to worry about this little bit, you can easily winch it out way out into the open and get it down towards trees, which makes it like really hard for anyone to steal. So if you get elevator cash out, lucky you, because it's really easy to hold this one. There are 2 zip lines over here that you might want to get rid of. There is this one over here near alley, right here. And there's also the one over by Duke, and that is a much longer one. This one is much more of a priority to get rid of. But if you're holding any box in this area at all, I would get rid of both of them because it makes it really easy to flank you, especially if you're not holding like right on top of glass or metal. So you just get rid of those as quickly as possible. Really quickly, I'm going to show this little jump spot right here. I'm going to be doing a completely separate video for movement on all of these maps because like I feel that just warrants its own separate video. But you can very easily get up here on the vent and get a nice little flank up over here onto large stairs really fast like that. A lot of people don't know that you can do that. Yeah, and there's also this vent that you can just kind of hold right here. It's especially good for moving platforms. If there's a moving platform over here and you don't want to be seen, this is a good spot to be. But yeah, this little jump is very handy. Over here on top of Mall, you can also see people like to call this one God Zip. Although there are kind of like 2 God Zips on this map and people use them interchangeably. So I'm just going to call this one Mall Zip. Mall Zip is super powerful for rotates. So you can either choose to break it if you don't want people rotating fast, or you can use it yourself. It's really up to you. Now, we are conveniently over here in Data Center, or Data Center, as you can call it, whichever one you like. And in Data Center, this is actually a very big location, so I'll try to get through it as fast as possible. But there are a couple main ways to access this space. Obviously, there are these 2 triangle pads over here. This one gets you on top of these stairs. That one over there just kind of gets you into the middle of garden. You can take this zip across down to the lower spaces, and you could take this bridge if you felt like as well. Obviously, if the zip is still up, you can take that zip. There's that triangle pad if you have under construction. There's a zip line back there. There's a zip line over here. There's stairs everywhere. Basically, Data Center has a lot of ways to get onto it, way more than the other buildings in this map have. So Data Center can be a little bit harder to hold at times. So that's something to be aware of, is that you kind of need to constantly be aware of like every different angle if you're on this building. This over here, this is called garden. As you can see, there's just a bunch of garden spaces. Garden is pretty open. A lot of fights do tend to break out like over here, especially on like a first cash box or something like that. But a real easy way to hold Garden is just to go up there or up there. So if anyone is like up there or up there, fighting from Garden is like a really, really bad idea, at which point I would just rotate down below. So Garden can be a good place to fight from as long as there's no one on height. So over here we have balcony stairs, and a lot of people like to sit over here in balcony stairs because you can also just go down in balcony. People really, really love to hold this spot. So like it can be good for certain situations, but it can also be a little bit of a death trap sometimes, depending on who you're facing. So just be aware of that. Like RPGs and like frag grenades and everything just cook this position. But yeah, just like rotating through that space over here, this space over here, it's very dangerous. So you kind of put yourself in a corner over here. You could also like make this jump like right here if you like were feeling really silly with it. But once again, you can still get shot from any of these areas over here. But yeah, it can be a dangerous spot to hold. It can work out for you, but it can be difficult. So yeah, just be aware of that. You could also hide back here if you really wanted to. A lot of people don't check this spot, but anyone from ramp can see you. If you're over here, anybody from up there on height or from balcony here can see you. So like this spot can be a good space to hide, but you just gotta like hope no one goes over there to like west walkway or ramp and sees you, because then your whole position is given away. Over here, this space is just another HVAC. I figured it's good enough to name this spot because enough fights break out over here and enough people hide over here that it should have its own name. HVAC is a very popular spot to fight because there's so much of this large cover over here. But if anyone just takes control of this height right here, it's pretty hard to fight anybody who's like right here while you're down there. So this area is good as long as nobody takes that triangle pad. And this over here, just for reference, this is zipline stairs, because this is where this zipline is over here. Over down here, this whole area over here, this is called West Servers. This whole space is just so massive, and yeah, there's a lot of cover, a lot of spaces that you can hide. But anybody who has garden control can very easily just demat on top of you and shred you. So if you're holding West servers, that can be an issue. At which point I would actually recommend that you come over here on balcony if anyone's up on garden and try and rotate with a jump pad up there onto height. You can also hide over here in east servers if you really feel like it. And over here, this is a good piece of cover right here, especially if you're fighting anyone over there on west servers. But once again, if anyone is sitting up here on garden and they have a demat, you can get cooked pretty easily. Another area I see people like to fight is over here on platform. This over here is platform. There is a cash box that's sponsored quite frequently as well. So over here on platform, this can give you good cover from a lot of different areas if you play your cover right. The only thing that I would be a little bit aware of is anyone who might be coming from over there in main servers. Over here, this is main doorway over here. This whole spot. You can take this vent right here into L room. This is just in a giant L shape. This is L room. And then as I mentioned before, this whole area right here is main servers. This space is called storage. There's a cash box here that spawns quite frequently, but I'll get to that later. And then we just get up here. This is storage second floor, or storage 2. Up here, this is rafters. Over here, this is secret stairs, because secret is right over here. This is metal. Metal is a very dangerous spot to be. I don't recommend staying on metal too long. This over here, this is square. Look at this area. It's just a giant square. That's literally all it is. A lot of fights do tend to break out over here in square, so that's something to watch out for. Anyone up in metal is going to have like an advantage for a time, but if anyone flanks you up here, it's pretty much game over for you, so be careful of that. Over here, these are main stairs right here. This up here is called billboard, or you could call it ads, whichever you prefer. Ads, billboard. I'm probably going to call it ads. And then over here, this is just rooftop. This area over here, this is just HVAC. But yeah, this whole area is just rooftop. You could say they're towards secret or something like that. But yeah, as you can see, data center is just massive. There are so many ways to get up here, which makes it really difficult to hold if you don't know what you're doing. So let me explain that in a second here. So because there are so many different areas that people can attack over here on data center. Otherwise, if there's a team over here in garden, you can hold from up here on ads. I see a lot of people also hold over here from rooftop, like right next to this ladder. Another thing I would do is just destroy that ladder like that. And then I do see people hold from rafters to hold main servers. It is really, really important that you know where to play. So up here on ads is going to be one of the strongest positions you can play, because most of the time, if you've done your due diligence and destroyed all the zip lines and everything, enemy teams are going to have to use 2 pieces of movement utility to reach you instead of 1, and you still have time to shoot them as they come up here. So this can be a very good spot to hold. The only issue is that sometimes if a team does manage to sneak up, maybe through secret stairs or something like that, and they pad up onto you, you can be a bit of an easy kill. So having a guy over here to watch for that can be a great idea. So over here in West servers, you can have a cash out spawn over in this area right here. Now this one, a lot of people like to just sit over here in balcony stairs and like hold it right here. Or maybe they go over to zipline stairs, but that's a lot less common, I feel like. And then some people just go straight out onto balcony itself. And then some people rotate up here onto rooftop or onto ads and just wait for them to steal and then kind of jump down. So probably your best idea, depending on the situation, is either to hold from balcony stairs if you're confident, or to hold up here from the rooftop if you are expecting a third party. As Duke was saying here, you can also hold from over here as long as you like destroy that area of the servers. The only issue with this sometimes is that if you're expecting a third party, there's basically like 5 different angles people can push you from. So in a 3v3, this spot is fine, but if you think that there's going to be more than one team, holding from over there or holding on top of the roof or on top of ads is probably going to be the better play, because there's just less angles for you to be pushed from. Now over here, you can also get a cash out spawn right here in storage. Now, a lot of people just like to sit over here and they just goo off the storage doors and they like sit right up here on top of these servers, and they're like, oh yes, it'll never find me here. But yeah, that's not going to work. You could even like maybe have a light over here who will like easily like rotate around if you feel like it. But the best thing to actually do for holding this server spot is to sit up here on rafters or even on roof and then just breach down, or just collapse through. And then if they have goo, I would just recommend having DMAT or breach charge to hold this space in particular. That's kind of the case with a lot of the stuff on Kyoto, is that I would recommend that you have a DMAT or a breach or some sort of something just to be able to hold from all these different angles, because as I said before, data center is one of the most easily pushed places in the entire game if you don't know how to hold it. So you got to make sure that your positioning is like perfect for this spot. Holding on rafters or holding up here from roof and then just dropping down with a DMAT or something is usually the best play for holding this cash out site. Now you can get one up here as well, and this one over here, this one can be a pretty easy one to hold because you can just like winch it over here out into the open. You can hold it from rafters, you can hold it on roof. A lot of the times I just like to leave it here even and just break this portion of the rooftop and just hold it from there. This cash out is very, very easy to hold. So if you get this one, you are in a very good position. It's right out in the open for you. So many different places to play this one. You could even like play from secret over here. There's just so many good places to play that cash out. So sometimes there can be a cash out here on square. This one can get very chaotic very fast. What I would recommend doing is holding over here on secret stairs, or you could hold from ads and drop down, depending on what you think is best for the situation, or you could hold right up there on top of main stairs right up here. So either of those positions are usually pretty good for holding that cash box. The one thing that I would do is I would either winch it out more into the open over here, or I would destroy this part of metal to make sure that you can shoot anybody who might be stealing it. So as you can see here, getting rid of this portion of metal is very, very valuable if there's a cash box over in this area. There can be a cash out spawn right here. This one is really easy to hold as long as you like just get rid of these trees, right? Some of these trees are very durable, but as long as you get rid of these ones, you can hold up here on roof, up here on ads. You can even hold over here from balcony stairs if you feel like. This one's pretty easy to hold. The only thing that I would worry about is people going and dematting this down. So if you are worried about that, what I would do is I would actually pre-drop the cash out, especially with C4 or breach or an RPG with explosives, not with demat. So I would drop this with explosives first, and then you can easily just jump down if they start stealing. The only issue with destroying right here is that it does tend to destroy a significant portion of garden, because this seems to be like a major spot holding it all together. So just be aware that if you destroy the spot and drop it down ahead of time, that a decent portion of garden is probably going to collapse along with it. I almost forgot about this one, but there is a cash out spawn that can be right here, right up here on ads. What I always do with this one, I just drop this down immediately. I drop it down right here, or I winch it down, or sometimes I even bring it down to like the first floor in general. Fighting like right next to the cash box is usually never a good idea in most situations, so just dropping it down a couple times is usually a very good idea with this cash out spawn. You can sit here and you can play demat, but it's like, it's a very exposed area to be trying to like zipline dance and demat from and trying to do all that stuff. So I would just drop it sooner, make it easier on yourself, and you can still hold ads just like normal. And if you drop it down all the way, then you're basically just holding the main server cash out from ads. Really easy. So that's what I would do. Now we have got Under Construction. This is a variant of Seoul that will sometimes spawn. Under Construction is very interesting because Seoul's a very rangy map, but Under Construction is a little bit more close range. The only part where range really matters is if you are like up here on the rooftops or up here on crane, but if you are anywhere over here or down here, close range weapons are going to be king. So it was kind of hard to come up with callouts for Under Construction because a lot of this is just kind of like, it's under construction. There's not much detail to really talk about. Exactly. So right here, I've decided to call this area stacks because there are 3 different floors, and it's one of the only places that are kind of like assembled like this, where there's like 3 different floors that people like fight around frequently. So yeah, this is called stacks right here. So you can say first stacks, second stacks, third stacks. You can just say stacks, whichever you feel like. This area over here, this is just mid. You can say mid stairs too, just mid. Obviously, we've got crane right here. Over here, this is just box, because like this box is always here. It's just box. This right over here, this is escape. It's a really, really easy way to get out of danger on this map. You could also go, I've seen a lot of people basically just kind of sit here on escape, and then when someone's coming, they like drop down here, and then they like zipline dance very slowly to like make it so that people don't necessarily hear them super easily, and then they come up again when it's safe. Although a lot of times people do destroy the zipline, so be aware of that. This over here, this is called Long Haul. Long Haul is a very dangerous area to be because there are 2 head glitch spots that you can get shot from. And you can even be shot from mid over there, or if anyone is like holding crane really, really close, they can shoot you. So yeah, don't stay in Long Haul. Long Haul is very bad. What I would do instead is go over here. This over here, this space is access. This is where most people are going to be jumping up from, is this pad right here. Or maybe not most people, but a lot of people are going to be coming up from that jump pad. This over here is access. This over here is windows, due to there being multiple different window entry points that you can take to come up here, right over here, and right over here. I'll just show this very briefly. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in my movement guide, but you can very easily get up here like that. And then this area over here, this is just zipline. This zipline is pretty much always here. I don't see people get rid of this one super often, but it does happen.
I see it happen in a final round a lot.
Yeah, final round.
Or like around the end of a match.
But most of the time, this zipline is usually going to stay unless you have some habitual zipline breakers in your lobby. This over here is called Box Hall. People don't really tend to hold this area, but they do tend to rotate through it. In terms of cash outs, you can get one that spawns right here over on box. You can get one that spawns over here up on mid stairs. And you can get one that spawns right here over in stacks. So these are the 3 main cash out spawns for this map. So let me explain what to do with all of these then. So this cash out on stacks right here, this one, I would recommend that you try and move this one out over here into the open. That way you can hold it either from stacks, you can hold it from zipline, or you can hold it from crane. Most people are probably going to choose to hold most of the cash boxes in this map from crane. But if you choose not to hold it from crane, what I would recommend is that you bring barricades or at least goo to kind of create some walls and cover for yourself so that you can hold from either right over here, or you can hold it from zipline or something of that sort. You could even like hold it over here from this zipline as long as no one destroys it, but that's a very, very risky maneuver. You could even hold it from heaven over in apartments, but once again, if someone destroys that zipline, it becomes very risky. All right, so if you don't want to pull it out here though, and you don't want to leave it out here either, you could potentially pull it down here into alley, in which case it is very hard to take. Holding it over here in alley is definitely something you can do. The only thing I would watch out for is someone with a dematting this wall and their friend winching it in and then having a nice covered area to steal from. So that's the only thing I would really worry about. And
if I can do it.
Not yet. I have one more. Okay, man.
Okay, man.
So yeah, well, as Duke has just demonstrated, you can bring it out here. But the other thing that you can do, I have seen this happen, is bringing this down 1 floor and then winching it onto this triangle pad right here and sending it onto lower roof of clinic. I've seen it happen before. So you can do that as a strategy if you want to. It's really up to you. It depends on just where you want to hold it. All of those are viable places. Now, for stairs cash box, this one can be a little bit harder to hold, mainly because there's just so many areas people can third party you from. You can hold it right up here on zipline. I wouldn't recommend it though. What I would recommend instead is just being a little ways away over here, maybe holding it on top of stacks. Holding it on top of crane is probably the best thing that you can do, or holding on top of long haul right over there can also be a good one. Because from long haul, as long as you have cover, you can either just run over here, or you can take this triangle pad to easily jump on top of anybody who might be stealing. A lot of times I see people demat this down, so just be aware of that. You can pre-drop it if you want to. If you can manage it, putting a gravity cube and then using a winch can get this cash box up here onto zipline. You could even maybe bring it over towards box, and if you're really good with it, you can bring it right up here on top of long haul, but I very rarely have ever seen that happen before. The easiest one would be to bring it on top of zipline, or if you don't have a gravity cube, you could demat this wall right here, and you could bring it right down here, which is probably a better spot to hold it than right there in the middle. So the last one can spawn over here on box. And most people just go up here onto crane and hold it from there. That's a totally viable strategy. You could also hold it from zipline over here. Or if you are really being risky and you feel very, very confident, you could sit over here in L room and then take the triangle pad up here and then attack anyone who might be stealing, as long as you've like moved the box over here instead of it being over here. But that one is far, far riskier. So honestly, my suggestion, I would sit up there on crane, or I would sit over here, or I would sit over here on top of zipline. I suppose another thing that you could do is you could sit over here, just like right over here on cliff stairs or edge stairs, or you could just be on garden, and when someone starts stealing, you could take this triangle pad up here and just get right on top of them. But that is like a good 3 seconds that you're in the air, so like it's up to you if you feel like that's enough time for you, depending on your lobby. But what I would recommend that you do for this box is I would go and I would winch it right up to this ledge right about here. This makes it very, very easy to hold because it forces people to steal out in the open, and you can even shoot at people from over there in a lot of situations as well. So it's just, having it over here is a really good spot for that box. Otherwise, you could try to demat this and send it over here onto this triangle pad. I don't see this happen too often. It'll end up right about over here. And I've even seen the box be brought all the way over to this pad as well. This one right here is pretty easy to hold as long as you have a team, like your full team is right there. The only thing I would worry about is if someone demats it down and then puts a dome and everything right here, it can be a little harder to deal with. But those are my main suggestions for that cash box. What I would not do is I would probably not bring it over here, and I would probably not bring it over here into this portion of box hall. Maybe bringing it over here into escape is okay, but like once again, it's just kind of risky. I like the other areas that I showed you just now more than those spaces, but I mean, it's your game, you can do what you want. I am going to show more of these things in a movement video that I have coming out for this map soon, but I will just show you this one because I think this is a really important one for people to know. And this is just the triangle pad jump, and you can do this. If you do an air strafe like that, you can get right up here onto zipline really, really easily. A lot of people just don't use this for some reason. It's super, super powerful, so just keep that in mind. If you ever have a team just camping up here and you don't know what to do, you can rotate over there, take that triangle pad, and easily get a really easy jump on them. So now we are in moving platforms, because moving platforms is a very big component of this map. As you can see, there are usually 2 moving platforms at any given time, but most of the time, yeah, only one of them will have the cash. The thing is, I see a lot of new players just like sit here and ride the moving platform the whole time. That is not a good idea because people can easily shoot you from height. So what I recommend that you go and do instead is that you follow it around from high ground. So usually the rotation goes from here, and then you rotate over towards sign on apartments, and then you rotate over on top of the roof of mall, and then you pad over and make it on top of the roof of data center. But something you can do, I've seen people like to winch it off or use goo to get cash out A off on bridge right over here. Sometimes that'll happen, especially if you're rushed, like I just kind of put Duke in a situation there. A lot of times I see people put the cash out from the moving platform right here in the middle, which makes it extremely hard to take if you don't have goo or barricades on you. And then people will just kind of sit up there or maybe on crane or something, and they can just get super free shots on you. That's the most common place that I see the cash out being taken off the moving platforms. Sometimes I'll see it taken off over here on balcony, and like sometimes I'll also see it taken off over towards mall garden or mall secret over there, or even west walkway. Sometimes that happens, and those are usually the most common spaces that I see it taken off of. So with bridge, there was something I wanted to mention, which is a bit of an interesting interaction on moving platforms. Sometimes I've seen people take the cash out off over the bridge and then like destroy half of it and just like leave it sitting here. The only issue with that is that if anybody destroys the portion of the bridge that the cash out is sitting on, the cash out is going to teleport back onto the moving platforms. So if you see someone doing this to you and you want to counter that, just have a teammate of yours go sit on the moving platform, destroy the area under the cash box, and it's basically a free steal. So that's all I really have to cover in terms of Cashouts and positioning and the callouts on this map, but I do have some loadout recommendations for you based off of the different things I've discussed regarding this map and some things that might come into play during your game. So these are some things that I would recommend that you use on Seoul. So for your light class, obviously your grapple, your evasive dash, cloaking device, it can all work. The only thing that I would say are like really, really good for this map, gateway obviously is pretty much a must, especially if you have teams that are destroying the bridges in your hospital or the crane. Gateway is great for getting your team across. The thermal bore is great for destroying crane or destroying bridges. Same with the breaching charge. That middle crane in construction, if you have just people sitting up there just holding the cash boxes like I told you about, thermal bore is a great way to get them down and to make the odds be a little bit more in your favor. Another one is smoke grenade, because a lot of people like to send out the cash box right in the middle of the open like I told you about. So smoke grenade can be a great way to give yourself some visual cover. And in that same vein, thermal vision is a great way to counter smoke grenade. And then if your teammate has a zip line and they want to cross connector, vanish bomb is also good for that. Any of the stuff is good in this map on light. Those are just some ones that I recommend for this map specifically. Obviously, jump pad, you should never take jump pad off, but definitely don't take it off for this map. Zipline also super, super good. And frag grenade can be also pretty decent in certain areas of the map, especially towards balcony stairs over on data center. but that's really more so up to you. And those are really the only things that I think are required for medium. I would definitely recommend that you have DMAT on this map for sure. Turret does tend to kind of fall off because there's a lot of long angles and turret just doesn't really reach that far. Turret's just not good in general at the time of recording this video, but especially on those longer angles, it's just not great. And heal beam is okay, but I think DMAT is specifically better for this map. Now, heavy is actually super, super good on Seoul because we have mesh shield, you have goo gun, and you have winch claw, all of which are very, very good specializations. Mesh shield is just good if you have things that are out in the open and you need to protect your teammates. Maybe you're taking a zip line and getting shot at. Mesh shield is fantastic. You also have winch claw for manipulating the cash boxes in all those different ways like I told you about earlier, especially because moving platforms and under construction are both things that will happen when you play Seoul, which is just so good. And then goo gun is really good for also manipulating the cash box and allowing you and your team to sometimes like stay outside of the map and then surprise people with a jump pad or something like that. Goo gun is just exceptional on this map. And then in terms of other specs, Dome Shield is great, RPG is great, C4 is always going to be a good option. The kind of sleeper picks that I would say for Seoul are Barricade, Goo Grenade, and Anti-Grav Cube, simply because so many people manipulate the cash box on this map that having a Barricade, a Goo Grenade, and an Anti-Gravity Cube are all fantastic ways to bring it back a little bit closer to you or to give your teammates cover to steal from when the enemy team is actively trying to abuse the long angles of this map. But yeah, those are my loadout recommendations for this map, and that is the map guide. So yeah, congratulations on making it to the end of this video. This thing took a really long time to make, so if you appreciate this sort of content, liking and subscribing is super helpful. Do let me know if you want me to make more of this type of content, and remember, while everything in this video is going to be beneficial to you in most scenarios, don't let this stop you from playing the game how you want to play it. And also, don't take everything shown in this video as law for every single situation. While it will be the correct choice in many and probably most cases, part of the skill gap of the finals is knowing when to follow the rules and when to break them. I also have movement guides for the maps in this game coming out soon, so make sure that you subscribe if you don't want to miss that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.